The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you.
Hello, and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist, Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
Hello? This is the guy on the phone. That is Eric Velasquez. My pronouns are also he, him. Anthony, I don't know if you got that. That was from the game.
Okay.
Five Nights at Freddy's. It is, quote-unquote, my impression of phone guy.
Okay.
So let's talk about this, okay? Because Five Nights at Freddy's is a relatively recent phenomenon, right? It's probably been around for, 10 years maybe?
Okay.
Probably 2013. Let's double check that. I want to make sure we get this accurate because I know if any FNAF fans hear us, they will come for us. So yes, it was originally released in 2014. It was released by Scott Cawthon. This is the original game, and most of the games have been made by one person. Now, do you know why Five Nights at Freddy's exists, Anthony?
So yeah, I read a little bit of backstory on the origins, but you definitely know a lot more than I do about all of this.
Oh, I was there in those ancient times and got in on the ground floor. And it's honestly fascinating, all right? So Scott Cawthon was a video game designer. He's a very religious game designer.
Okay.
So he made originally a game called Chipper and Sons Lumber Company. And this was kind of he put a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of love into this game. Well, when it got released, no one liked it. Literally everyone hated this thing. And a lot of people said all of the designs for the characters are unintentionally fucking terrifying, okay?
Okay.
And these are supposed to be happy little chipmunks and things like that, right? But they look like animatronics and soulless animatronics. So... Okay. And this is kind of my understanding of the story from here. Basically, Scott was on the verge of quitting game design because this was kind of his, maybe a passion project. But so he then went on to have a dream about being chased by a purple rabbit. And,
okay.
We're going to get that. That's going to be Bonnie. But so he had that nightmare. He wakes up and he goes, they said my game is terrifying. I'll make one that's intentionally terrifying. And he goes on, he creates Five Nights at Freddy's, a very simple game where you literally sit there in front of screens and just flip through them and to stop the animatronics, and then you shut doors in animatronics' faces. So he literally took all of this pathos and channeled it into this one thing. And this was his last chance, right? After this failed, he would just go back to his normal job and that would be it. Well, turns out when he released it, it kind of did fucking gangbusters, and it got picked up by the YouTube community and just proceeded to explode all over the place. And that led to game releases yearly, if not twice a year, and that would be Five Nights at Freddy's 2, 3, I think Sister's Location. He was cranking out games faster than people could finish them, basically. Okay?
Okay.
So this leads on. Everything gets so big, inspires lines of books to be written for this universe of Five Nights at Freddy's, right? There's a bunch of in-universe lore, and it seems like every iteration, he's probably just winging it at this time, but somehow that works, and he's able to channel that into a cohesive story. Effectively about a man named William Afton and his subsequent child murders, right? And the evil that he's done throughout his life. Eventually, the game Pizzeria Simulator, which is kind of the end, to a degree of at least the Afton story for the most part. I can't say that for certain because things have happened. And then, so he gets this other game up and running. Takes a while to do. It's called Help Wanted and Security Breach. So Security Breach is this massive game for Scott, but he actually has a team working on it this time. Okay? So at this point, Scott Cawthon is making money hand over fist just by pumping these games out, right? Well, it also turns out he's been using a lot of that money to donate to far-right Christian organizations. Okay?
Okay.
Right, because he's a Christian, and at this point he's also kind of a wealthy Christian. So, you know, what do you do when you're a wealthy white guy? You pump it into the Republicans, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you gotta love that. But the funny thing is that the Five Nights at Freddy's community is comprised of a lot of people that are outsiders, right? You have a lot of trans kids, you have a lot of queer kids, you have a lot of kids of color, or people of color. At this point, they're mostly grown up. It's been out for so long, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, and these people are like actively hurt by what he's doing, right?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So at that point, I will give Scott one thing. He actually, it seems like he stopped, and then he took a step back. So he's letting his creation kind of, I don't know if you would say this is he did the death of the author thing himself, right? To a degree.
Okay.
He's kind of separating Five Nights at Freddy's from himself. And it seems like he's no longer donating to those far-right groups, as far as I'm aware. I haven't checked it recently, but it seemed like he stopped. So he actually learned his lesson, Anthony, which you got to applaud that. Or at least he seems to have learned his lesson.
So he kind of did a J.K. Rowling and then stepped back and, like, course corrected instead of doubling down like she did.
Right. Instead of charging forward, he was like, no, my bad, guys. My bad. And he did the thing that, you know, everyone wants these idiots to do.
Yeah, that's...
Just take responsibility and fucking hold your L.
I mean, it feels like, I mean, just even if you think about the origin of the game, like, he seems like a guy who is able to learn and pivot, and so that kind of makes sense that he would do that in his life as well.
Exactly.
It feels to me like both his story kind of parallels the game's story, and then also both of those are kind of like a version of a Frankenstein story, and that, like,
right,
he made the, you
exactly.
know, in Five Nights at Freddy's, you have a guy who makes like a kid-friendly pizza place that then turns to be like a horror thing, and then he creates this kids-friendly Christian game that turns out to be horrific, and so he's just leans into it. Yeah, it's kind of, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, good for him though. I mean, you know, once again, he's learned from it. And by the way, the meta narrative of this fucking series goes so deep that it's actually bled over into real life. Like, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is that he's leaned into it in that the books, if you've ever read any of them, they have a meta narrative. And then Help Wanted, like I was talking about earlier, which is a VR game, well, that's kind of a parallel universe, but also not, because in the game, they reference that, oh yeah, the previous games were made by a disgruntled programmer who was down on his luck, who, you know, he just wanted to make the Fazbear Entertainment family look bad. Right.
Okay.
And that's the story they went with. So, like, he's digging deep into the meta, and it's working pretty fucking good.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Speaking of digging deep into the meta, the thing we are actually here to talk about is Five Nights at Freddy's, the movie that has been in development since, like, what, 2015?
Yeah, I know it's been, like, a long time coming.
Right. So, literally, like, 2 years after the first game released, people are giving him rights to books. They're giving him rights to movies. Like, fucking A, man. I wish some of my stuff blew up like that. You know?
Yeah. It seems, you know, usually when something gets stuck this long in sort of like development hell, when it finally happens, it's usually a kind of a letdown. But, you know, it seems like this managed to, like, do what it was setting out to do.
Yeah. Well, I would say so, because it became the second or third highest grossing horror movie, like, of all time.
Oh, wow.
That's my understanding. It definitely had one of the biggest openings.
Okay.
So the fandom is keeping this thing going, for sure. Like, I'm not saying this is a bad movie. I wouldn't ever say that. I think we've seen it in Willy's Wonderland a little bit. Mm-hmm. I mean, they got to it first, right?
Yeah.
But, like, they've already guaranteed there's a trilogy. Like, whether the next ones do really well, there's at least 2 more movies coming out.
Yeah, I believe it for sure.
Yeah. And if it follows the games, then everyone will be happy. So, but also, obviously, spoilers ahead. Mm-hmm. If you haven't seen it, which, if you're a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, what the hell? Also, what are our warnings? I mean, this is a PG-13 movie, so there's not a whole lot. Like, there's some blood and guts, and they get away with some gore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say most of the content warning type stuff is all sort of imply, like, you never, there's a lot of stuff about child death, child abduction, etc., but you never see anything particularly graphic as far as that goes. The kids that we never see a kid in peril. We know things have happened to kids, but in the course of the movie, we don't really see anything too graphic.
Right. Now, also, though, they don't show this, but if you played the games, you know that the little girl who will become Chica, her dog also died with her, and there's a very bitey cupcake in this one.
Okay. Yeah.
So once again, not explicitly stated, but implied.
Okay. Yeah, I did not make that connection, but
yeah, you only get it if you've played or watched the Let's Play of it. All right, let's get this party started. We're going to start off in media res. Mm-hmm. Funny story, Anthony. You don't strike me as a big YouTube guy.
Yeah, not too much. Like, I'm not watching game streams or anything like that, really.
Yeah. So, if I said the name Markiplier, would that mean anything to you?
No.
Okay. So, he's a very big YouTuber. He is known for his Let's Plays of horror games. He's actually creating a movie based on a video game called Iron Lung, which is about, I believe, you're in a submarine in an ocean of blood, and you're trying to survive. You're like one of the last people alive in the universe. Last humans. So,
okay.
That's a thing he's doing. So he's like a filmmaker as well. But he was supposed to be in this opening scene. He was supposed to be the security guard. And that's another thing we're going to see a lot of in this movie, is that a lot of YouTubers that played Five Nights at Freddy's and the subsequent games are brought in to be people in the movie. They're brought in to be the actors.
Yeah, I did know about the waiter was a YouTuber. That was the only one.
Yeah, Matthew Patrick of Game Theory fame. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha, yeah.
And I believe that there are also the members of Max's and her brother's crew.
Okay.
They are also YouTubers. At least a couple of them are.
Gotcha. That's pretty cool. Like, kind of honoring the fans, or like the people that have sort of, given the game sort of the attention. Like that. I feel like that's, YouTube is definitely where like game community thrives at this point. I guess that and like Twitch and stuff like that. But
right.
Yeah.
And because if there was no YouTube, there's no Five Nights at Freddy's.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just the fact of the matter.
Yeah. Having like a little indie game that blows up this way, it only happens when the fans, grab onto it.
Right. It's like we don't need massive, production companies to make stuff like this,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, Blumhouse isn't small by any means, but this is something more or less created and driven by the fans.
Yeah.
And you love to see it.
Absolutely.
Okay, but yes, Markiplier is supposed to be the security guard that is hunted down by Bonnie, also known as, I think, the most violent animatronic.
Okay.
And which is, once again, the purple rabbit, or blue rabbit. It's purple. I don't know. I'm not colorblind, I swear. But anyway, catches the guy, puts him in this weird contraption that looks like a Freddy Fazbear face, but it has buzzsaws on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens to him?
He's like strapped down to like a slab, and then he puts the helmet on him, and then like I think we just go to credits, right? So like,
yep,
we are led to believe that he was killed by this helmet. It seems
absolutely,
yeah. While like the credits are going on, we kind of just get shots of this location, the Freddy Fazbear Pizzeria or whatever. It's very like Chuck E. Cheese, you know. I mean, that's kind of the deal.
Man, that was fucking terrible. By the way, should we talk about Chuck E. Cheese? I feel like we missed a trick by not including the fact that this was also inspired by Chuck E. fucking Cheese.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess, Chuck E. Cheese is still around, but I don't think it has, like, the cultural cachet that it does now as when, like, we were kids.
And there's also, like, what is it? It's, like, some family-friendly thing with, like, a gorilla.
Was that the Showbiz Pizza?
Showbiz Pizza, that's the one.
What was the band? The band there was called the Rockafire Explosion, I think.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like, there was just this weird time where, like, animatronic bands of animals performing for kids at pizza places, and like obviously this is making a reference to those things. You can still go to a Chuck E. Cheese. It looks very similar. There's the animatronic mascots. There's like a play place. There's a wall covered with like kids drawings of the various mascots. And then to kind of like lean into the fact that, this is inspired by a video game, we also get like some animated like pixel art scenes of the Freddy mascots doing things.
Right. And that also goes to the reference, I think, of the Pizzeria Simulator. And, basically from Five Nights at Freddy's 2 on, there was those little mini games that had those graphics like the ones we see.
Okay.
But we also see a almost golden rabbit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's definitely prominent in a lot of the kid drawings for sure. And we haven't seen him, like the actual animatronic mascots. We don't, like you said, we've got the purplish rabbit, the blue bear, the red bear.
Well, there's the red fox, the brown bear.
Gotcha, yeah. Brown bear, and then like the yellow chicken.
Yes.
Or chick, I guess.
Yeah, Chica the chick.
Yeah.
Very original, right? and of course, the cupcake.
Yeah. So, there isn't a corresponding yellow bunny as part of the Freddy's troupe.
That's weird. And everyone else knows exactly what's going on. All right, but after we get a intro, basically from the game, the music is actually from the game, we also get an alarm going off, and a guy kind of falls out of bed.
Mm-hmm. We'll eventually learn his name is Mike, and his alarm goes off.
Mike Schmidt.
Okay. And it's 6 a.m. He gets up and goes to check on a girl. At first, it seems like it's his daughter, but we'll find out that he's like caring for his younger sister. Her name is Abby.
Right, and we'll talk about that later. But the relationship seems kind of standard for brother and sister. Mm-hmm. Like, they annoy each other, but there's still obvious love there.
Yeah, they care about each other, but there's a little bit of antagonism. Obviously, being in that position where you're having to be a parent to your sibling, they're not as likely to respect your authority as they would a parent, but, she also has to. Like, it's her only, they don't have parents anymore, so, they're kind of thrown into this sort of weird situation together.
And we're also learned that she prefers Mike over her other family.
Mm-hmm. So it's like, he's getting her up ready for school and everything. And then I think we just from there cut to like later on, he's at work.
They're discussing Dream Theory with one of his coworkers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're in like a mall food court. I guess like on their lunch break. And we see that Mike is a security guard. He's got like the vest on and everything. And he goes to get some ice cream, I guess, before he gets back to work. But then he sees what seems to be like a child abduction taking place. Like there's a guy who kind of like
grabs his kid.
Yeah, and kind of starts like forcefully pulling him away. Being that he's a security guard, Mike, rushes into action and chases
beats
after.
The shit out of the guy.
Yeah, like tackles him into like the fountain at the center of the mall, and then is just beating him up. And we cut right from that to him sitting in like a career services office. So
number 27.
Yeah, so clearly he doesn't have a job anymore. We'll find out that was the kid's dad, and I guess the kid didn't want to go home or whatever. And
we're also introduced to in my opinion, the biggest star of the movie, Matthew fucking Lillard, baby. Mm-hmm. A.K.A. Stu Macher, A.K.A. in this movie, Steve Raglan.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And, so, Matthew Lillard is the
career services guy.
Yeah, and he's got, like, Mike's file, and he's like, wow, you've got a really abysmal track record of jobs. You're, seems like everything
insubordinate.
you do... Yeah, you just keep getting fired. At this point, your options are very
extremely limited.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, every line from Matthew Lillard is fucking quotable as shit.
Yeah.
Like, especially when he's telling him about the job, he's like, yeah, the pay's awful, but the hours, they're worse.
Yeah.
It's so amazing.
Yeah. And, Mike's like, no, I can't work nights. Like, I've got my sister, I've got things to do. Or no, he doesn't say his sister, he just says I can't work nights.
Right.
We'll later find that the reason why he can't work nights is a little strange.
Yeah.
So he's like, all right, well, this is all I got for you. So here's my card. If you change your mind, let me know, but otherwise you're out of luck.
Right. Oh, by the way, I want you to notice that he says there's only one thing you have to do at this job. Keep people out and keep it tidy. And Michael's like, well, that's two things. That is important for later. Mm-hmm. Just keep that in your pocket.
Yes.
But yeah, Michael comes home to a notice of eviction on his door.
Yeah. And inside, there's the babysitter, Max. She's like, there's a little bit of food left if you want it. And he's like, did Abby eat? And she's like, she didn't. So he goes to check on Abby and tries to convince her to eat. And she's, pretty insistent that she doesn't want to. She's drawing a bunch, and she kind of like talks about having imaginary friends.
Yeah, her friends don't like Mike. Mm-hmm. They think he's stupid.
And like I think Mike sits on one, as parents tend to do. They don't know where the imaginary friends are sitting. Abby seems to me like a little bit autistic coded, but I think it could also just be child who's dealt with some trauma and is kind of like descending into her own world rather than, live in the real world. So yeah, she's very much about imaginary friends and drawings and not really interacting with the outside world at all.
Absolutely. And he makes some notice of kids who don't eat will stay the same size forever. Which, I mean, I guess, sure, eventually.
Yeah, and like he's like, you want to ride roller coasters, and if you got to get tall so that you can pass up the height requirements.
Yeah. And then we see Mike take his pills, goes to bed with a poster of Nebraska above his bed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a Nebraska weird. Tourism poster, and he puts on some headphones with a cassette tape of nature sounds. And it seems like he's got a very specific routine. Like you can tell this is like what he does every single night.
And he has a dream about, going out camping with the family. Mom and Dad they're cooking some burgers. Somebody knocks over some apple juice.
Mm-hmm. And then he like looks over and sees his brother being kidnapped, like put into a car. The car speeds away. He starts chasing it. And so Mike is a child in this scene. But as he starts chasing the car, he turns into the adult version of himself, but still can't catch up with the car.
Right. And that's when he wakes up.
Mm-hmm.
And then we cut to his aunt calling him a degenerate for barely being able to keep his eyes open at 11 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah. And she wants custody of Abby. And, you can tell right away, like, she is a pretty, one-dimensional character. She's manipulative, she's bitchy. No. She kind of fake cries at one point. Has a just schlubby lawyer sitting next to her that's just all greasy.
He's literally just there for the looks. He does nothing else in this scene.
Mm-hmm.
But his acting's still great. The character is meant to be a punching bag for the aunt, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, she's basically. She's like, you're not fit to take care of Abby. I want to take her in. And then it's just she's like, I'm going to take you to court if you don't give her up. And then we just cut to a little later, and Mike is talking to the court appointed psychiatrist or therapist or something. And he's like, my aunt just wants Abby so that she can get a check from the state. She's not a fit parent either.
Right, which that's weird because also Abby is going to cost her a lot. So I don't ever get that reasoning. Like it's the whole welfare thing, right?
Yeah, I know that like there are situations like foster homes, if they take in enough kids and, treat them poorly enough, they can kind of like generate a little bit of a profit, but I can't imagine that you could do that with a single kid, that you would have to completely rewire your life around. I mean, unless you just like chained them up in a basement and gave them cat food to live on or something, which, who knows? I don't know how awful this aunt is.
Yeah. But yes, it's definitely a caricature more than a character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Mike is like, I don't think that she would be a good mother, but like, she's not wrong. I'm not really fit to be a parent either. And she doesn't, like, Abby doesn't seem to really care about me. And the psychiatrist is like, haven't you looked at her drawings? Like, I know she's kind of like in her own world, but like every one of these drawings has you in the middle of it. Like you are her world. Right. And, Mike's like, oh, I hadn't really thought about it that way. Like that's kind of encouraging to him.
Right. But of course she's also like, hey, maybe if you get a job, that'll make you look really good on paper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So back at home a little later, Mike calls the job office and is like, okay, I'll take the job. Then we just cut to like Mike driving to the office and we get like their phone conversation as like a voiceover.
Yeah, it's literally the phone guy thing almost from the games. But Raglan says, so the owner is kind of a sentimental guy. And, he just wants to make sure that he doesn't want to get rid of the building yet, right? Mm-hmm. He doesn't want it torn down yet.
Yeah.
The electricity's a bit iffy. So you're going to have to go to the breaker and activate everything that way, which, game mechanic and all that.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I've got to say, like, after all is said and done, we can say this is a good movie, maybe not a great movie, but still probably one of the best video game adaptations I have ever seen. It is faithful.
Yeah, I've only I played a little bit of the first game just recently for the show. And yeah, it does feel like it gets the spirit of the game right. Whereas, usually there's not been a lot of, I mean, I guess there have been like, a lot of like Resident Evil type games and stuff like that. Yeah. But like, the classic Mario Brothers movie was a train wreck.
Disaster. Yeah.
The recent one was,
Yeah, it's fine.
The Sonic movies I thought were fun, but it doesn't feel like it's adapting the game. It's its own thing. Which, I mean, I think that's the thing is if you have a game like Mario or Sonic, there's not enough plot in the game to actually make a story, so you have to just kind of start fresh. Whereas I think Five Nights at Freddy's has the lore. It has something to build off of to tell a cohesive narrative.
I mean, for the most part, it is mostly plot, right? Mm-hmm. Like, the gameplay's there, but it's there to facilitate the plot.
Yeah. Basically, he's like, okay, so this is going to be a pretty easy gig. He again says, all you got to do, keep out trespassers, keep it tidy. Then we just see Mike sitting in a security office, staring at monitors, watching the site, and, nothing's going on all the screens. It's just kind of,
But there's a tape addressed to him.
Yes, yeah, just a VHS with his name on it. He pops it in, and it's the security training video from Freddy's.
The owner of the facility has two passions, or has the passions of family fun and animatronics. Did you notice there was no food mentioned there? Just family fun and animatronics. Mm-hmm. Okay. That pizza must suck.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's, Chuck E. Cheese is kind of the same way.
Cardboard with basically oil on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you see what was the name of it during COVID when, DoorDash and all those places, really blew up?
Or are we going to talk about the ghost kitchens?
Yes, Chuck E. Cheese had a ghost kitchen, like a fake restaurant. I can't remember the name of it.
It was named after the chef character that they had for a while.
It was like just an Italian name, but I can't think of what it was. But just really funny that you could accidentally buy Chuck E. Cheese pizza and get it delivered to your house and be like, what is this trash?
Pascali's pizza.
Yes.
Pascali's.
Which I think is he's a rat or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing with these places is you're buying cheap pizza for your kid's birthday party. It's more about the games and the animatronics than it is about the food.
Absolutely. That's just there to tide you over to keep playing games.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, the training video, it does a good job of being like what a real job training video is like. It's just kind of like phony corporate speak. But there is a little bit of like ominous quality to it. Like,
yeah, it skips.
And well, she says something about like protecting the animatronics is your sacred duty, which seems like an intense word to use in an office training video. Yeah. But then, yeah, like you said, it starts to glitch out at the end and get kind of like, like The Ring kind of, it's nothing that scary, but there is just something a little off about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, we're getting some atmosphere. I like it. It's great.
So Mike gets up. He goes over to like there's like a little bank of lockers. He opens one, and we get a jump scare where there's just like a creepy clown doll sitting in
that character is literally called Balloon Boy.
Okay.
Yep. And apparently he's an animatronic at some point.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously it scares Mike. He turns it around backwards so he doesn't have to look at it. And inside the locker is a little security vest that he puts on, and he starts like kind of making his rounds, walking around the building.
Yeah, so he's walking around, and we do see a wall with all the drawings on it. Some look a little bit newer than others, though. Like some are like the faded brown or brownish gray almost, but some are a little bit brighter.
Yeah, that's interesting. He hears something fall and goes to like check the curtain, like on the stage to see what's back there, and everything seems fine. He doesn't see anything, out of there's just the animatronics back there.
Yeah, just all the animatronics just sitting there.
And so then we just see a little later he's back in the security office and he dozes off
to a little bit of radio chatter.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
When he falls asleep, he goes right back into the same dream he had earlier, which will quickly become clear that this is like an every night thing for him. He just exists in this moment.
Which is fucking terrifying, and it's its own little hell.
Yeah. But this time, as he like chases after the car, after it gets away, he just sees 5 strange kids standing in the woods. And he's like...
It's weird, though, because like one's wearing like a blue shirt, then one has like red hair and a red shirt, and then there's a girl who's like blonde with a yellow shirt, and then we get this kid with a top hat, but then there's this other kid
who's got little bunny ears.
Yeah,
I did not catch that at all. Like I watched this twice, and the second time I was like, oh, okay. Like,
they're color coded for sure.
But yeah, I mean, like, if you're not like paying attention or you're not familiar with the lore of the game, it's just 5 kids dressed like kids are. Kids kind of dress weird sometimes. Like, a kid wearing like little bunny ears. You got like Louise from Bob's Burgers. That's just like her thing. It just seems like that. But yeah,
when
so
Mike tries to talk to him, they just fucking bolt off like they're playing hide and seek.
Yeah, he wants to know if they saw anything with the car, and yeah, they just run away. And he chases after one of them. They split up, so he chases after one of them. But he trips and falls in the dream, and then wakes up in real life.
Right, and on his watch it is 6 a.m., which is when the nights end, I believe. Mm-hmm. And your shift is over.
Yeah.
So he survived his first night at Freddy's.
Right. Yeah, and so then we just see him, arriving back home. Max, the babysitter's asleep on the couch, and he's like, "I'm really sorry, Max. Like, I'm gonna pay you soon. I've got this new job. Everything's gonna be okay, and I'll be able to give you money soon."
But I do like how she's like, "Don't worry about it. I know where you live."
Yeah. Then we just cut to like later. Max is meeting with his aunt again. This time they're in like a diner. Yeah. And the lawyer's there again.
Yeah, but man, that waiter's a little pushy.
Yeah.
Talking about how lunch is the most important meal of the day.
Right. And this is the YouTuber that we were talking about earlier from Game Theory. And he like...
But that's just a theory.
And he says that to them. He says something about like that. I think the lunch is the most important meal is just a theory or something like that.
Yeah. Well, they say, we thought that was breakfast. He's like, well, that's just the theory.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because you got to get that branding in there.
Yeah, that's like I was definitely not familiar. I actually the second time I watched this with a like tween kid, and he was like, "Hey, that's," and I was like, "What?" Okay, so I learned something.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly do like the game theory channels, so they're fun if you just want to learn useless shit and like or have just random ideas about it. About the games you play.
And it seems like that show has focused a lot on Freddy, so like it makes sense that he would be on there.
Like he every year at least, he tries to come up with a unified timeline of Five Nights at Freddy's. And I don't think everything's matched just yet after 10 plus years of doing it. But if anyone's a subject matter expert on this game, it's him.
But so of course, once he walks off, we've got the family meeting again. Oh no! It wasn't. It's not Mike that's at this meeting. It's Max.
It's Max.
That's
And
so
this is brother.
Yeah, this is where we get the reveal that the aunt has been paying Max to spy on Mike,
or haven't been paying them specifically.
Because like the idea was that you get me some information and then I'll pay you.
Right.
And Max
you can't just come back and say my nephew's a little sleepy, but otherwise a good dude.
Yeah, Max hasn't been able to Mike actually is a good guy, so she's not able to find any dirt on him.
Right.
The lawyer's suddenly like, wait, so
I shouldn't be hearing any of this.
Yeah, this is all incriminating. I don't need to be here. And the aunt just kind of like shoves him. Is just like, sit down.
Right. And then the brother's like, well, we could kill him, and the lawyer's like, I definitely should not be here for that.
Yeah. And Max is like, well, I do have one thing. Mike said that this new job has to work out or he's not going to be able to maintain custody. And her brother's like, well, it's a security job, so maybe if we can prove that he's incompetent by breaking into the place, then we'll ruin his job and get him fired, and that'll solve it.
Don't you love it? And he's like, we'll do it for $2,000. And because the aunt is cheap or just awful, she is like, no, $1,000. Because she hasn't paid them before, they're still going to go through with this. Just saying, I would be like, nah, I'm good. You're good.
Yeah. Does Max's brother ever get a name? I just kept writing Max's brother the whole time. I don't think they ever say it.
I don't think they name him.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure in the credits he's named. Let's find out. Oh, his name's Jeff.
Jeff, okay. With the game sort of being like first person and you're the guard and, there's none of these characters correspond to anything in any of the games, right? No. Okay.
Yeah. No. The only one that matters is Mike, Steve, the Ghost Kids, obviously. And there's something weird about Abby. Once again, we're going to talk about that later. But no, there's no Max. There's no Jeff. There's no Aunt. What's her name? Aunt Jean? Aunt Jane. I'm sorry. Aunt Jane. So none of those characters are a thing in the games.
Gotcha. So I think once from this meeting, we go back to the house where Mike is, getting ready for work again. This time he tears his Nebraska poster off the ceiling. He's going to take it with him to work.
Yeah, but Abby wants to go.
Yeah, and he's like, no, you're going to stay home. You got to sleep. Like, it's not a good place for you to be. It's like a little later, Mike is at work. It's storming outside. He starts to doze off again, and as he's falling asleep, we see kind of behind him, there's a shadow of one of the animatronic figures behind him.
Dun, dun, dun.
And, of course, when Mike falls asleep, we go back to the same, horrible dream again. And this time, he manages to catch up with one of the kids that escaped, or that runs away from him. And when he grabs the kid turns and, suddenly Mike's, his arm is cut. He's bleeding.
Right. It's Fox. Yeah, it's Foxy. Mm-hmm. They scratch his arm with the hook that they have.
Yes. And he looks at the kid when he's, he gets hurt and is surprised, and the kid's crying black tears. And then Mike wakes up, from the nightmare again. The lights in the office are flickering, and he hears the song. I think it's just called Secrets That You Keep, maybe? I don't know, it's that 80s song.
Yeah, the 80s. I love that they've made this a thing, by the way. This is also not in the games, but I think it will be from now on.
Yeah, it's such a part of this movie, and it works so well.
Yeah. And I believe the animatronics are playing that?
Yeah. So he's like, well, something's wrong with the power. If the lights are messed up and the bots are playing, they're, like everything's out of sync. So, like you said, game mechanic, he goes to find the breaker box and flips the breaker.
So that's good. That's good news.
And yeah, once he does that, he hears the doorbell ringing. That's strange. It's the middle of the night. Why would someone be ringing the doorbell at this abandoned pizza place?
Well, there's a nice, when he goes to check on it, there's a nice young lady she's a cop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
I heard she introduces herself as Vanessa, and she's like...
And immediately, everyone's ears perked up if they haven't seen this movie, because that is a very important character in the Security Breach games.
Gotcha, okay.
So.
So she sees that he's bleeding, and she's like, "Here, let me come in. I'll help you. I've got EMT training as well." So they go inside, and he's like, "Why are you here? What's going on?" And she's like, "Well, I'm a cop in the area. Freddy's is on my beat. I like to check in on it every now and then because I know it's abandoned, and I don't want anything bad to happen. I loved the place as a kid. I have some fondness for it."
Aww.
And I think we get what I would say is probably a Frankenstein reference, in that we find out that Vanessa's last name is Shelley.
Shelley, yeah. Well, they even mention it, right?
Yeah.
They're yeah. So it's like the book,
right? Yeah.
So I mean, obviously, this whole thing it's a weird. It is a take on Frankenstein for sure. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Is this also where? Is this where they actually show the baby Springtrap suit? But that's a little bit later.
That's a little later, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, right now, like she's bandaging up his arm, and she's like, "You seem kind of like you're acting a little strange. Like, what's going on?" And he's like,
Are
it's
you on
just
drugs?
Yeah, he's just like, it's just been a weird night. And she's like, "Yeah, it sounds like another night at Freddy's. You're gonna quit just like everybody else does eventually."
That's weird.
And he's like, "Why do you say that?" And she's like, "Well, have you met them yet?" And he's like,
Who?
"Yeah." And then she's like, "Also, do you know the whole story about why this place is closed and everything, and all the kids missing and all that?" And he's like,
Exposition.
"Yeah, yeah, pretty much." So he's like, "Yeah, I don't know any of this." And so she like is kind of giving me a tour. She like hits a button, and all the animatronics come back to life. They start singing "Secrets That You Keep" again.
Right. And she specifically notes that they're like her friends.
Mm-hmm. And she says, like, "Isn't this just like the best thing you've ever seen in your life?"
Right.
And he's like, no, it's just some robots singing a song. Like, I'm not that impressed.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Well, do you want to dance?" And he's like, "Okay, sure, okay." But then everything glitches out and stops, and he's like, maybe next time."
Yeah.
So then he's like, "So what were you saying about missing kids?"
Yeah.
And now we get the real like exposition dump.
Turns out in the 80s, a bunch of kids went missing around the place. Nobody ever found them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, that just kind of, like, the place's reputation tanked. People stopped coming, went out of business, She's like, "Oh, you need a badge. You don't have your security badge." So she goes over to, like, the little prize booth thing and gets, like, a little tin badge that's, like, Freddy Sheriff or something, that, like, for kids, that, like, pins it to his security vest.
Now you're all official.
Yeah. So they kind of have a little bit of a cute thing going on here with the two of them.
Yeah, it would be weird if something awkward were to happen later. Anyway.
Like, that's the night's kind of coming to an end. She's like, I hope it works for you. Don't let this place get you down. I'd like to see you succeed here. They leave together. It's morning again.
Yeah, and as they leave, I believe some people show up.
Yeah, Mike gets in his car to leave, and we see that Max's brother, Jeff, is watching from a distance and, like, calls Max and is like, "All right, he's leaving. It's time to get to work."
Right. They get a whole crew to go in and just mess this place up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he finds a way in, they get inside, and they just start, like, wrecking shit, just, trying to make it look like it's been ransacked.
Right, but once again, stating there were several. Most of them are YouTubers, I actually believe. But one of them, like, gets kind of separated from the group. Mm-hmm. And I believe they stumble upon, like, a cupcake.
Yeah, he ends up in the kitchen, and, like, there's, like, a refrigerator that's kind of, like, rattling, and he, like, opens it, and inside,
it's such a good scene.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's so tense.
It's really good because it's like it's got like dual doors, and he opens the first one and he doesn't see anything. He closes it, he grabs the other side, and inside there's just this creepy cupcake staring at him. It's got a little face and everything.
Plastic cupcake.
Yeah, and the cupcake, like, does it like spring out and attack him, and then like we see the
What happens is he turns around and he sees the Chica, the bird animatronic. Mm-hmm. And that's when he's like, well, that's fucking weird. Then he turns around and, the cupcake springs into his face and starts biting on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he kind of gets dual attacked by the two of them. Then one of the other guys comes strolling in and sees and goes running.
Yeah. By the way, this guy looks like he's like 35, 40 years old.
Yeah.
And everybody else is like 16, 17 maybe, 20.
Yeah, he's a strange henchman here.
Yeah.
And while he's running, Jeff is in the security room and sees the guy run away on the monitor and is like, what's going on? Yeah, that's strange. We cut back to the guy. He continues running. He finds a closet and ducks in to hide. But then the closet door is pulled open by the bunny animatronic.
Bunny, yeah.
Jeff sees that happen. Like, he sees Bonnie attack this guy. And,
right. No blood's visible at this point.
Right, yeah. So he runs back to the security office to secure himself. So it's just, a lot of people, it's like people getting scared and trying to hide and then getting chased by various animatronics.
Right. He tries to get through the vent like the security guard, doesn't he?
Well, he sees that Chica puts the cupcake into the vent. And so he's trying to hold it closed because he knows the cupcake's coming for him.
Gosh, I love it.
Yeah, it's really good. But so eventually the grate kind of stops banging around and he's like, all right, it must be moving on to something else. So he goes.
The door swings open.
Yep, and in walks the fox.
Foxy, yeah.
Yeah, and I think Foxy is the creepiest of them. Like, Foxy, it's got a hook for a hand. It's all decayed. Like, one of its legs is, like, all robotic. Like, the fur is all worn away.
Right, and it's also got the, it's cut on its chest as well.
Yeah.
And it's got an eye patch. It's a pirate. He's a pirate fox,
Right, yeah. So, obviously, Jeff is taken care of by Foxy. So Max has been just outside, like, keeping watch for all this. Has no idea, but nobody's coming out. So she's like, that's weird. What's going on? So she goes inside to check on her brother and all their idiot friends.
Right, but the only thing she finds is, I think, Freddy?
It's like a kid, right? Like,
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Oops. My bad. She sees it just a kid, and he runs and she chases him.
Yeah, and this is one of the kids that Mike has been seeing in his dream.
The blonde-haired one?
Yeah, so he runs away, she kind of follows, and then, like, she can't see him anymore, but they're kind of playing, like, warmer, colder. She can hear him talking.
Right. And that's also coming from the animatronic, right?
Yeah, because she eventually bumps into Freddy, and then she gets close to it and is like, what's going on? And then a kid's hand...
on fire!
Yeah, a kid's hand reaches out of the animatronic's mouth and drags her in... And, like, she gets, like, halfway in, and then he just, like, chomps and bites her.
She gets bisected. Mm-hmm. Cut in two.
Yeah, it's
like,
good.
this is the most blood. They were like, we're going to push that edge, the edge of PG-13 right here.
Yes.
And you hate to see it, because Max was not a bad person. She was just drawn into a bad situation.
Yeah, I mean, obviously she was making some bad choices, but, yeah, she doesn't seem to be villainous. She seems like a person in a desperate situation.
But I think that also displays that these animatronics don't give a shit. Mm-hmm. They're kind of amoral.
Exactly, yes. At this point, Mike has arrived home and, he checks in on Abby. He tries to impress her with his little toy badge, and she just doesn't seem to care. No. Which kind of, like, hurts his feelings. Like, he's trying to connect with her, any way that he can. So he just takes off the badge and tosses it in this drawer on, like, there's, like, a little, like, end table kind of thing. So he, like, leaves the room. And I think Abby kind of feels bad that maybe she wasn't, like... She sees that he was trying to make an effort, so she goes to get the badge out of the drawer. But instead, the drawer gets jammed and falls out and spills a bunch of stuff on the floor, including a bunch of custody paperwork. Yeah, and so, she's a kid. She can tell a little bit about what's going on with the paperwork, but not fully. And it looks to her like Mike's trying to get rid of her.
Give her to Aunt Jane.
Yeah. She gets upset, and Mike's like, "No, you don't understand. Like, it's not what it looks like." But before they can kind of continue this discussion, there's a knock at the door, and he goes to answer, and it's Vanessa again. She's like, "You're already messing things up. Like, somebody broke into Freddy's. It looks like, did you forget to lock a door?"
And he's like, "Oh shit."
Yeah, and she's like, "I found your sleeping pills. What do you can't be doing pills on the job. Like, this is not a good look."
Pretty much, if you do it again, I'm going to arrest you.
Yeah, I think she says, like, it sounds like you were too whacked out to remember to lock a door, then that would be criminal negligence.
Right.
And he's like, let me tell you what's up. So let's go on a walk. So they leave, and he kind of gives her his whole backstory. You know, his brother was kidnapped. You know, we've kind of figured a lot of this out from these dreams, but, like, this kind of confirms that this stuff is real. Like, his brother really was kidnapped, and he takes sleeping pills every night so that he can force himself back into this nightmare, because he's convinced that his brain recorded everything that happened and that he's just having trouble remembering it. But if he relives it in the dream, maybe he can find a clue and figure out, like, solve his brother's kidnapping.
Yeah, that's when they bust out that wonderful thing about, you always remember, everything you've seen or experienced, you will always remember it. It's just very deep, right? That's that dream theory bullshit.
Yeah.
It's like, man, we're going to forget shit. Sorry, dude.
Yeah.
You can't get everything.
And, he's like, yeah, our mom died, our dad was, like, basically our family was really close, and when the brother's name was Garrett, I think,
Garrett.
Right? Mm-hmm. He's like, when Garrett got kidnapped, our family just kind of fell apart, which, I mean, that's a common thing, child death, like any kind of unexpected trauma with children often results in divorce. It's just, it's hard to keep acting like things are normal when you have such a big trauma in the family. And so it sounds like, the dad kind of ran off, stopped really participating in the family life, and then at some point the mom died, and now Mike is taking care of Abby. She's all that he's got, and he's all that she's got, pretty much.
Yeah, when people heard that the father kind of ran off in this situation, once again, ears perked up, because there's a number of theories that Mike Schmidt is an alias for Michael Afton, believing that he might be William Afton, or the son of William's partner, Henry. I don't remember what Henry's last name is, though.
Okay. So when you play the game, you are Mike. You're not just like an unnamed security guard.
And you only learn that at the end of the game when you get fired, because they give you your severance check and it's addressed to Michael Schmidt.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the first 3 games you're playing as Michael Schmidt. I don't remember if you're playing as anyone else after that, other than just a random person.
Gotcha. Yeah, I definitely did not make it far enough to, like, I died pretty quickly every time I tried to play. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Henry Emily is the partner. So maybe the dad changed his last name to Emily. Who knows? I don't know. We're gonna find out probably in 2 or 3, right?
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Yeah.
Let's hope.
So she's like, I get what you're trying to do, but while you're at work, no more of this at work. Like, you've got to stay alert at Freddy's. You can't fuck this up. And he kind of sort of agrees, but then it's about time for him to go to work again, but Max hasn't shown up, and he tries to call her, and she doesn't answer.
I wonder why. Oh, well, I guess that means Abby, you're going to have to go with me tonight.
Yeah. So, of course, Abby's been wanting to do this anyway, so she's excited. And, so once they get to work, he kind of sets up a little tent in the security office and is like, you're not exploring the place. You sleep. You're just sleeping. I got to do work, and I can't be keeping an eye on you, so just stay here in the office.
Right. Okay.
He leaves her, starts doing his rounds. He manages to get jump scared by the little balloon boy doll again. Then he starts, as his, job indicated, like, he's supposed to keep the place tidy. So he is just cleaning up all of the mess from the, last night's break-in. He's sweeping up broken glass, just rearranging everything. Manages to get a lot accomplished, actually, and then it's time for him to do his nightly ritual. I don't think we see him take the pills this time, though. I think he actually listens to Vanessa on that, at least, but he is still going to go to sleep, and he listens to his nature tape.
Yeah, and as he goes through his dream, the blonde boy actually talks to him, right? And he starts bringing the stuff up about the yellow rabbit.
because he keeps asking, and he's like, yeah,
Do you know who took my brother?
and he's like, if we tell you, what will you give us? And he said, I'll give you anything.
Anything?
Yeah, and he
you want?
agrees. So
Okay.
he see the kid draws like a bunny in the dirt, but then he hears, like, Mike hears a scream, like in real life. He wakes up, and Abby is gone. She's not where she's supposed to be.
Oh no.
He goes into like the big main parlor area.
Yeah, all the animatronics are standing around something, and
Yeah.
he hears Abby go,
Yeah, and so it turns out that she screamed because they were just tickling her so hard.
Yep. Which, that's adorable. Fucking terrifying, but also adorable.
Yeah. And Mike's like, this has got to be a joke. Who's here? Who's controlling the animatronics? Like,
These are my friends.
she introduces them as Freddy, Bonnie, Foxy, and Chica. And she's like, they like my drawings. She gives, I think, Freddy a little drawing of a heart. Mike's like, we got to go home. Like, I can't deal with this. And then it's like
That's
the next...
right, because he makes that statement about the living animatronics.
Yeah. While Abby's asleep, the next day, Mike looks around at all of the drawings in her room and sees that she's got a bunch of drawings of the kids he's been dreaming about.
Weird.
Then I think that's when he clicks and is like, wait a minute.
That's right.
Bunny ears kid, top hat kid with a hook for a hand, and, a kid, like, I think the other kid has a cupcake on her sweater or something like that. So, like, obviously these all correspond to the robots.
Yeah. He's figured it out, folks. He's there.
Yeah. And so then when Abby wakes up a little later, Mike's like, tell me about these drawings.
Right.
And she's like, those are the kids that went missing. They're ghosts, and they control the robots at your work. Like, she just knows it all. Like, she's figured it all out. And she's like, they're my friends. And he's like, do you know about our missing brother, Garrett? And she's like, yeah, I mean, he was gone before I was around, but, like, I've heard stuff about it. And he's like, I found this drawing. This is Garrett being kidnapped. Where you weren't there for this. How did you draw this? And she's like, yeah, the kids told me about it. He's like, did they tell you who was driving the car? Like, what was the guy like? And she's like,
what's his name?
They didn't tell me about a guy. They only talked about a yellow rabbit.
Once again, mention of that yellow rabbit. Interesting.
Yeah, and Mike's like, all right, well, you're coming with me to work tonight, and you're going to grill these kids because they're not telling me shit, and they seem to like you.
Right. They don't like me, specifically. He says they like you and they don't like me.
Yeah.
That's when they meet Vanessa outside the pizzeria.
Yeah, like it cuts to, like, he's headed to work, and Vanessa's already in the pizzeria looking at the drawings, and we see one of the 5 kids from the dream holding hands with the yellow rabbit.
Oh. And then we get a fucking adorable scene of them just kind of hanging out with I guess we'll do the slight confrontation, right? There's a little bit of a moment where the animatronics are kind of getting bristly with Mike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and because, like, at first Mike's like, okay, Vanessa's here, you gotta hide. And Abby's like, I'm not gonna hide. And he's like,
right.
Come on, please, like, you're gonna get me into trouble. And, all the animatronics are awake and alive and everything, and Vanessa's like, hey, yeah, I know about all this too. Like, I guess it's good that you figured it out, and now we don't have to keep dancing around all these secrets.
Right, these are my best friends, so let's hang out and have some fun.
Yeah. So they
get
start
a cute scene
building a fort together.
Out of all the tables.
Yeah.
It's great. And I'm not going to lie, I would never in my fucking life lay down beside an animatronic that I know possibly has my murder on its mind. Right. I'm just not going to do it. Like, I don't care how attractive Vanessa is, not going through that.
Yeah. So yeah, they end up they like have all the chair part of the fort, and they're like, what this still needs is a roof.
Right,
so
get a tent.
Yeah, so Mike and Vanessa are like, all right, well, you Abby, you can hang out with your friends. We'll go look for some tablecloths. That'll work.
Yeah. That's when they go in the storage room.
Yeah, and that's when they finally see there's a bot laying on the ground that's like a broken doll. It's all like it's all opened up, like its rib cage is pulled apart.
Right. And it does, like you said, it looks like a doll, right? Like a baby doll.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Anthony, what's if you rearrange the words on or the letters on Abby, what does that spell?
Oh, I did not make that connection at all.
Oh yeah, yeah. So, funny story. There is an animatronic in the games called Baby. It's supposed to be William Afton's daughter, from my understanding. But obviously, this one's taking a different route. Hopefully, in part 2 and 3, we don't see something nasty happen to Abby. Is all I'm saying.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so like Mike starts getting close to the doll, like he wants to look at it, and Vanessa's
Right,
like,
Vanessa's like, don't do that.
yeah, and he's like, why? And she's like, there's spring locks, so all the dolls have locking mechanisms that basically their animatronic parts are protected
But they can be worn by people.
But it's to protect the technology or whatever. There's these like locked cages, but if you were to mess with it, the locks could spring shut and crush your arm or whatever.
And to score that, she takes a mop handle and presses it in and pop.
Yeah.
So
So Mike's like, you knew there was dangerous stuff like this, and you just let Abby run around here. Like, why didn't you tell me this? And she's like, I didn't bring Abby here. You did.
Right. And she's like, speaking of that, don't fucking do that again. She stays home from now on.
Yeah.
Or no, that'll be a little bit later after. They go in, they basically finish the fort, then they leave. And she's like, do not bring Abby back here ever again, or I will fucking shoot you myself.
Yeah, because when they go back out to where like Abby's playing with them, Abby is like trying to strum one of the guitars. And gets like electrocuted or shocked.
Yes,
that's right. And Vanessa is like, you got to take care of Abby and keep her safe. If you bring her back here, I will shoot you. Like I don't want anything to happen to her.
Right. So Vanessa's a great person.
Yeah. She's trying to be. She's trying to keep Abby safe at least.
Yeah.
And as they leave, Abby's like, that lady looked really mad at you. Why does everybody look at you like that? Which, that cracked me up.
You see, yeah.
So that's night 4. We're getting close to the
there's only one more left.
Yeah. So back at the house, we see Mike make a call, and he's like, hey, I need your help. But we don't see who he's talking to.
Well, let's be honest. There's only one person that he could be asking help from.
Yeah. And in fact, that's next scene. Abby's waking up and sees that Aunt Jane is at the apartment.
But man, how fucking depressing would that be? Like, you found the court documents, right? Then a couple days later, you go to eat breakfast, and you see your motherfucking brother and your shitty ass aunt just sitting there talking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Abby obviously is really upset. She, screams. She tells Mike that she hates him. She runs back to her room, slams the door. The aunt is like, all right, Mike, I know you got to go to work, but we're going to have a talk when you get home.
Yeah, a serious talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's, you know what's going to happen.
Yeah. So Mike heads to work, and on the way he stops at a pharmacy, picks up more sleeping pills.
I love his interaction with the fucking pharmacist, man. Like, the pharmacist is trying to be like really friendly with him and just talk about the pills and all this other stuff. And Mike's just like, I don't give a shit, man. Walks off. He's like, man, you're an asshole.
Yeah. Mike's just got too much other things on his mind. He's not really in a place to be friendly. He's not a lovable guy. Yeah. When he gets to work, he goes just straight to the nature tape. He's not doing any kind of security work. This time, the dream is different. It's not... Before it starts the same, and then, we get more, like, stuff added to the end each time. But this time, it's, like, totally different right away. All the kids show up, and they're just there. Mike's like, I need your help. Like, I need to get justice for my brother. And they're like, you don't want justice for him. You want to save him. Like, you want to stop it from ever having happened.
Right. It might be possible. Sure.
Yeah, they're like, you could live in this world where we are now before everything happened. And make
forever.
Things... Yeah.
The only thing you have to give us is Abby.
Yeah. And, obviously Mike has spent his whole life around this one thing. So...
Well, he's kind of like, okay. For a second there, he's like, okay.
Yeah. Like I think he says it's been such like this is kind of a Frankenstein moment in its own way, where it's like he has been so single-minded in pursuing this solution to the problem of his brother's kidnapping that he will give up anything. And then as soon as he says yes, he's like, wait a minute, no, Abby is also my sibling. I also want to protect her, and I'm not going to throw her under the bus for this other thing. And as you know, it's like, this is wrong. I don't want this.
Well, the kids don't like that statement, so they just gang up on him.
Yeah, and so in the dream, they're coming to attack him. Meanwhile, in real life, Foxy is approaching Mike, hook outstretched.
Yep.
So then it's like a few minutes later, Mike wakes up and he is attached to that slab that we saw at the beginning.
Oh no, there's that spinning blades on the Freddy mask again.
Yeah, but he's able to like wriggle free and doesn't get chopped up by the mask.
Yeah, I think it's basically supposed to have been implied that the previous security guard loosened it for him.
Right. And so then as he kind of escapes and starts running away, this is like, the classic slasher thing where suddenly he starts seeing dead bodies everywhere and realizing that like a lot of stuff's been happening that he didn't know about. He sees Max and Jeff and all of their crew.
What's left of Max.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and basically they did the slasher thing, like you said, where they propped him up in parts of the area.
Yeah.
But then we cut back to his house. Something's there.
I think Aunt Jane goes to knock on Abby's door, where Abby's locked herself in. Abby ignores her, so she goes back and sits down to watch TV. And then, like you said, we see something behind her. It's the Freddy bot.
But it's a little different. It's more like almost golden.
Mm-hmm.
This one's a little different.
Yeah, and
a little bit older looking.
And then Abby comes out of her room, and where we were seeing this giant bear a minute ago, now we see a little blonde boy.
Right. We're waiting for you, Abby.
Yeah, it's time to go play.
Yeah.
And we see.
Oh no!
And Abby looks over and sees her aunt laying on the floor unconscious.
Yeah, she's just sleeping. She's not dead.
Right. So Abby goes outside and there's just a cab waiting for her.
Yeah. The taxi driver is a YouTuber as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, that definitely seemed like just a little comic relief character. And so Abby gets in, and we see from Abby's viewpoint, she and the boy are sitting next to each other. But then from the cab driver's viewpoint, it's Abby and the giant bear.
Right. He's like, whoa! What the fuck?
Yeah. But he's like, fine, whatever. I'll take, a fair is a fair.
People are weird nowadays.
Yeah. So then we cut back to the restaurant, and Mike wakes up, and Vanessa is there, and she's kind of caring for him, taking care of his wounds and everything. He says the animatronics tried to kill me, and she's like, yeah, I know.
They do that.
And she's like, yeah, but now Abby's in danger. We've got to do what we can to take care of her. And Mike's like, yeah, I made a deal with them in the dream, and we got to make sure that doesn't happen. She's like, okay, yeah, I expected that. They want to make her like them.
Yeah. Now, oh shit! Everything's hit the fan right now, right?
Yeah. So while they're having this conversation outside, Abby has arrived in the cab and goes inside. Vanessa's like, okay, so I know I told you what happened in the 80s, but there was something I didn't tell you, which is that when all the kids went missing, of course the police got involved, missing kids. They searched the place. The police searched every inch of the place, and they never found the kids dead or alive, never found anything.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah, the kidnapper was very cruel, but he was also very clever, and he hid the kids' bodies inside of the animatronics.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah, so this is how we get the ghosts trapped in the robots, is that
they're haunting the ghosts. And honestly, this was a better way that they handled the ghost possession than the games and the books. All right.
Okay.
Let's take our divergence, Anthony. Let's go back down that lore hole one more time.
All right.
So in the book universe, there's something called Remnant. Remnant is created when a soul is tortured, and that can infect certain things. So you can use it like you were enchanting metal. So you could take the suffering of a person and put it into molten metal and form an exoskeleton out of that. So how fucking dumb is that, by the way? I'm not, but that suffering is what animated the animatronics in the books and some of the games.
Okay.
I let's just make it simple, guys. The animatronics are literally just haunted and slash possessed.
That makes it definitely simplifies things.
Yeah.
And so Vanessa's like, they were good kids, the killer, he because they're inside of animatronics, he still has some control over them. So it kind of is like a dual personality thing, two consciousnesses inhabiting the same, or I guess consciousness, one's a ghost and one is the remote controlled, animatronic that's powered by the creator.
Right. He was a very clever but cruel man.
Yeah. And, Vanessa's I tried to warn you, but it's too late.
Yeah. My father, William Afton. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, so the kidnapper is Vanessa's father. First, she shows him a photo of her father, and he's dressed as a yellow rabbit. Young Vanessa is standing next to him holding his hand, and she's also holding Garrett's plane that we have seen. Garrett has a toy plane in the dream. Yeah. The implication being, of course, that once Afton kidnapped Garrett, he took the toy away and gave it to his own daughter. And Mike's like, you knew all
of trophies.
Yeah, exactly. It's super fucked up. And Mike's like, you knew all of this? And she's like, well, no, I didn't know about Garrett at first. I knew about the kids here at the pizza place, but I've figured out more as time's gone on. And Mike's like, well, you have to help me now. And she's like, I can't. He's my dad. He still exerts some control over me as well. I will be a liability. But what I can do is give you a bunch of tasers and cattle prods because the animatronics are still animatronic. Electricity is a good way to stun them at least.
By the way, that was the mechanic of Sister Location, is you had to stun the animatronics.
Okay. So Vanessa gives him that stuff and then leaves, and then we just get Mike kind of sneaking around the facility, and this feels very video game the stealth mission that you have to do where he's kind of crawling around and some of the animatronics start to notice and they look and he ducks and waits until they kind of...
Bonnie and Freddy are both playing talking in your sleep is the song, and it's kind of like Bonnie's like dude a little bit, and Freddy doesn't give a shit, he's jamming. Until the moment that Mike gets a little bit too close, and then he just whips around and starts looking. It's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Meanwhile, we see that, Abby has come inside and Chica is with her now and is leading her down a hallway.
Yeah, they're going to some special sacrificial chamber almost.
Yeah. But back in the main area, Mike has a really good plan. He dumps a bunch of water on the stage and then hits the water. Yeah, cattle prods the water. That takes out several of the Freddy and Bonnie, right? So Chica and Foxy are both gone.
Well, Foxy's watching this shit go down. By the way, Kid Foxy, this is one of the greatest scenes of the movie. Kid Foxy's watching. Then he takes a step back, and then animatronic Foxy comes rushing out.
Yeah, they do a really good job of that sort of. Well, even Mike also we see Kid Mike and Adult Mike back and forth in the dream. There's definitely a lot about the inner child, sort of, in a way. There's these two versions of everyone that are interacting depending on the situation.
It's your body on the outside versus how you feel on the inside, to a degree.
Yeah. But then back with Chica and Abby, Chica is trying to shove Abby into that doll bot, the baby bot.
Yep.
She, of course, starts screaming. Mike hears and rushes to check in on Abby and manages to shoot Chica with one of the taser guns.
Right. But I think there's something behind Mike there after he gets Abby out of that situation. Looks like a little cupcake.
Yeah. So Mike is kind of apologizing to Abby, and he's like, I'm sorry. I should have listened to you more. And Abby's like, I don't understand why they're trying to hurt me. And then that's when the cupcake attacks Mike, and he's just like, run, Abby. I'll fight him off.
Right. And he just gnaws his ankles a little bit. That's all.
Yeah. And so meanwhile, Abby's running through the place. she sees like the silhouette of Foxy, and again we get into that like video game stealth mode where she's trying to hide from the fox. Meanwhile, Mike has electrocuted the cupcake. He's now trying to track Abby down again, and she has crawled into the ball pit, and like we kind of get like the Apocalypse Now thing with just like her eyes above the water line, but it's the colored balls, and then she like ducks down under the water or under the balls.
Okay, another aside, if you will, if you'll allow me.
Yeah.
So, the ball pit probably got a lot of people freaking the fuck out because in the books, a lot of times there's a portal to either another dimension or back in past in the ball pit. Why? I don't fucking know. It's just there.
Right.
So, and honestly, when I was like, are they? Is this how they save Garrett? Do they go back in time in the ball pit? No. Okay. No. The ball pit's just another Easter egg.
So yeah, while Mike is still kind of searching around, suddenly a new mascot character, shows up.
Right.
It's the yellow rabbit that we've seen so many drawings of, and he's like got this evil laugh, and Mike, zaps it with a taser, but it doesn't have any effect at all, and he's very confused. And then we see that Foxy is pulling Abby out of the ball pit, but Vanessa just shows up and electrocutes the fox. So she manages to save Abby, but meanwhile, the rabbit is talking to Mike and says, first I killed your brother, and now I'm going to kill you. It's perfect symmetry.
Right. I didn't know who you were, but your name looked familiar to me, right?
Mm-hmm. And he's like, all right, my children, to the bots, like, wake up. I've got something for you to play with. Yeah. And they're, all kind of coming together, surrounding Mike. The rabbit is like, your sister will love it here, but you are finished. He pulls out a knife, and did you catch this little fun Easter egg? He pulls out a knife, and he, his whole
the Stu
blade.
Yeah,
he does the ghost face knife wipe from Scream.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah, very, very good. But then Vanessa pops in and is like, drop the knife. Does she have a gun pulled on him?
Yeah.
She's like, all right, take off your mask. And, he removes
Unmasks the killer.
Yeah, and it's
Wait,
Matthew
that's
Lillard.
Steve!
Yeah.
Steve can't be William Afton.
Yeah.
Matthew Lillard revealed as the killer? What?
Yeah, when does that happen?
Right.
So he, he's like, Vanessa, you got to help. Like, this is the job.
Well, doesn't he also say you had one job, and that's to keep him in the dark or kill him if he finds out? And then Vanessa goes, that's two jobs. And he's just like, fuck you, and stabs her.
Yeah, it's really good.
That's the payback, the payoff for the earlier. That's two things.
Mm-hmm. While they're having their confrontation, Mike talks to Abby, and he's like, okay, you need to go show your friends that the yellow rabbit is the one responsible for their deaths.
Yeah.
So
this was actually really cool.
Yeah. So we've seen all these. We've seen all these drawings of like the yellow rabbit holding hands with the kids, but now Abby kind of recontextualizes that drawing and like does an evil version of the yellow rabbit, like I think with like a bloody knife, and the kids are
kids are all dead around.
Yeah. Earlier we saw that the ghost kids liked her drawings, and so she shows them that, and then all of a sudden all the animatronics kind of turn on Afton, and Abby's like, they can see you now.
Uh-oh. Is at this point, or do they actually like get a little bit closer and start fighting him when the locks engage?
Well, yeah, as they start to get close to him, Afton kind of gets a little bit of a Frankenstein moment where he's like, look at what you've become, you rotten beasts. I made you. Right. You're betraying me. But then, like you said, the suit locks on the bunny suit start engaging and digging into Afton's flesh.
It looks very painful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, this is basically like a sharp rib cage just crushing in on him.
Right. But I love his... Okay, so this is also a reference to the game, but I think it's also kind of a reference to Schumacher again, when he's like... I'll be back. I always come back.
Yeah, he puts his mask back on as he's like dying. The animatronics drag him back into the hallways, behind the stage, while Mike and Abby help carry Vanessa out. She was stabbed. She's kind of limping. And as they get outside, the ceiling is collapsing behind them, which kind of this kind of feels like the end of a Universal Frankenstein movie. Like we've got the heroes all escaping as the castle collapses with all the bad guys inside.
Right.
And from there, since it's not a Universal movie, it doesn't just end there.
Pretending?
Yeah.
No.
So we've got Mike again talking to the court-appointed psychiatrist. She's like, Abby, I don't know what you did, but Abby's making big progress. She's doing so much better.
Friends.
Yeah, she's kind of coming out of her shell. So whatever you're doing, keep up the good work.
But we haven't asked questions about your Aunt Jane. Whatever happened to her, yeah.
Yeah, true. So then we get Mike and Abby. They're driving home, after their meeting or whatever. And Mike's like, okay, Abby, what do you want for dinner? Pizza or spaghetti? And she keeps insisting she wants both, which is a big change from earlier when she didn't want anything to eat.
Anything. He's like, you can't have both.
Yeah, and they kind of like they're arguing again, but it's much more playful. This is like good sibling arguments, like
it's healthy.
Yeah, and finally she's like, all right, spaghetti, but only if it can have meatballs. And he's like, all right, it's a deal. We can compromise on that. But on the way home, they stop at the hospital, and Mike goes to check on Vanessa, who is unconscious. And he just
almost comatose.
Yeah, he does the standard thing of like sitting by her bedside and talking to her even though she's out. He kind of thanks her for all the help. He's like, I know, I was upset at you for kind of keeping secrets and everything, but you came through when it counted, and I don't think we would have made it out without you. So, I'm going to be here. Whenever you wake up, I'll be here. We can reconnect then and see, how we're going to proceed. Back at the house, Abby and Mike are eating dinner, and Abby's like, I know everything's okay, everything worked out or whatever, but I'm sad because my friends, they're all alone, they're still trapped at Freddy's. Can we go visit them sometime?
Maybe not, but...
But Mike says you never know what will happen, which is such a, maybe we'll have a sequel.
Yeah. And they kind of we kind of pan out that moment, but then we also go back into the storage room where we have the golden Bonnie, or William Afton, is laying down there. And who was outside of it? Was it Freddy? And it's the kid. It's the blonde kid, Freddy.
Yeah. And Afton is alive, but he's like in a lot of pain. You could tell he's just like, in agony. And then, the kid just closes the door. He's just trapped in there, alive and in pain and
ish.
Yeah.
Game over. Boom.
Yep. Then we go to so then we go to credits, and or the credits start, and it's like there's like a Five Nights at Freddy's song,
okay. So another thing, there's this band ? It's like / person who goes by the name Living Tombstone. They've created a lot of fan songs for the games, not for the games, but
inspired by the games.
Exactly. So they actually got to do one called literally Five Nights at Freddy's? Welcome to Five Nights at Freddy's?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's really cool. Like that, honoring the fans in that way too. Like that's really cool. But it's kind of cool. Like the credits start, the song starts, and then it just gets cut off abruptly, and we get like a mid-credit scene. The cab driver that dropped Abby off, he's asleep in his cab, and somebody's knocking on the window, and he's like, I'm off duty, and they keep knocking, and he's like, I'm not today, man. I'm not doing it. And then he looks over, and sitting next to him in the passenger seat is that fucking balloon boy clown doll again. And then then it goes back into the credits start over again with the song and everything.
COMEFINDME. Yeah, find me. So, and that's a reference to, I think, The Puppet, which is another thing altogether.
Okay.
There's lore on top of lore.
I knew that had to be something from the games, but it was definitely a very ominous way to end the movie.
Yeah. So, if my predictions are right, this is the only movie in which Vanessa will be a good person, unfortunately. Because in the game, she is a literal white rabbit. Not an animatronic white rabbit, Just a person in a white rabbit suit. And she works for William. She wasn't his daughter in the game. She was just basically mind controlled by him.
Okay. Yeah, interesting.
So, but I like the take, right? They did a lot of creative stuff with the lore. They still honored the lore. They honored the community that kept it going. And obviously, without the community, this thing wouldn't be around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like these games, it's such an interesting story, like the development and the way that it's kind of like snowballed into this bigger thing. It feels, like a lot of stuff we see with Hollywood, like, when you get to like the Marvel movies or like anything like that, it often feels like Hollywood is like, hey, here's a community that we can take advantage of to get money, and we can keep cranking out things. We don't have to try very hard. They'll keep buying our shit because they're just rabid for the thing they like. This feels a little bit more respectful of a fandom, and like less like it's being cashed in on, and more like we're building the next chapter together, and we hope that you all appreciate what we're doing and are on board. Right. Whether it be getting the YouTubers or the musicians to add to it. It's like, we're making this together. Obviously not every Freddy's fan can be part of the movie, but like, we're going to do our best to like, at least acknowledge you all and see that, that you have made this what it is.
Exactly. I guess you would say this like film by democracy versus the more corporate film by committee.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Because, I mean, like you said, nowadays with everything done in Marvel, it's paint by the numbers. Nothing's really exciting. The last, like, really exciting thing I think there was Shang-Chi. Mm-hmm. And that's been a couple years now, or about a year. So, so what are you going to do?
Yeah, and it's definitely refreshing to, like, talking about how this has been sort of, like, in development for so long. Usually that doesn't lead to something like this. It is the committee thing where it's like, oh, we've had 8 different teams of writers that we fired, and the script has been, rehashed so many times over that it doesn't make sense anymore, but all these producers wanted to have their say, and now we've got this pile of trash, like the Green Lantern movie or something, where it's just like, this feels like there may have been something at the beginning, and then it's been picked apart so much that like there's nothing cohesive anymore, and this feels like the opposite, which is it's pretty. And I feel like the two of us talking about it is perfect because all of the backstory, and it feels like you feel seen and appreciated, and you can understand all these little Easter eggs and feel good about the way it treated this thing that you're already aware of. And me, I knew nothing going into it, and it made sense to me. I appreciated the story. I mean, you can't ask for better than that to like, make the old fans happy, find some new fans, also just like casuals who just want to go catch a horror movie and not become a rabid fan.
Right.
Wherever you're coming to this movie from, it'll meet you there, which is, it's pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like another thing for PG-13 movie. This pushes a lot on that PG-13. Like, we do get a little profanity, which, that's, to me, that's nothing. That's G. But like, there's a lot more blood than you would expect out of a PG-13 movie. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever seen a PG-13 movie where someone had gotten bitten in half by an animatronic.
Yeah, and I know there is a contingent of like horror fans who get really mad about PG-13 movies, but I mean, PG-13 movies are what make new horror fans. You need them to keep horror alive, and so I think this is a great like mid to, it's not entry level like Hocus Pocus or something. It has a bite to it.
There's a couple really tense scenes.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it definitely is going to build a new community of horror lovers. And, obviously it's going to make more fans of this game and, keep the game franchise alive. And like you said, will likely end up being a trilogy or more. This could be, the next big horror franchise. Yeah,
which is wild. I mean, that it actually came out. Basically, the bar set's on the ground right now, though, right? Because, like, the only thing they have to do is just not make a bad movie. Mm-hmm. Just keep making a consistent movie.
Yeah. Yeah, and they've already got the lore sitting there to work with. Like, they can fine-tune it as they want for, this new version of the story. But, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, like you said, like they don't have to do too much to keep this going successfully.
Right.
Which, yeah, it definitely is exciting to see where it'll go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I definitely want to see what routes they take in the next one, right? Because there have been divergences, but they're respectful, and you can see where they're going, which I think that helps a lot in a lot of cases for adaptations as well. Like, some things are just so fucking wild and off the wall. Like the rocket boots in the Super Mario Brothers movies. You know?
Yeah. Where it's like, where did this come from? This has nothing to do with the thing we love.
I mean, they jump, sure, but damn, they could just jump.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, like, yeah, I'm not too precious about, like, things that I love. You know, like, if a book is adapted and it, you know, like, Stephen King books, they change things, you know, like, I love The Shining, the novel. I love The Shining, the movie, and they diverge quite a bit. But,
yeah, well, listen, there are parts that you just can't adapt. Like in It, with the scene at the end of the sewer when the kids are escaping and want to copulate to keep themselves together.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to change things up for a different medium, and that feels like you can do that respectfully, and I feel like that's kind of what we see here.
Exactly. Agreed. So we've talked about this for almost 2 hours, Anthony. Is there anything else more to be said? Like, I think we nailed it.
Yeah, I think we've really dug into this one. This has been an enlightening conversation. I've enjoyed learning more about this world. It makes me want to give the games another chance, even though I know that I'm so terrible at video games. I know I'll never beat that first one. But... Well,
listen, you don't have to play all the games. You could literally just watch somebody on YouTube play them, and it's almost the same experience, right?
Yeah, that's probably better than me just getting killed by that fox over and over again.
Yep, and you'll also help Markiplier earn another mill, which that's, you know, good for him. That's all I gotta say about that.
Right.
I wish I could do that.
Yeah, that's the dream, right?
Right. Yeah, I miss that boat, I think. All right, Anthony. So you know, we've been on a bunch of a train for a bunch of like new movies, basically. I think in the last couple of years the last couple of episodes, we haven't had anything past 2020.
Yeah. Other than our one little divergence with Man-Made Monster, it's been very, very recent.
Well, so let's go a little bit further in the past. Something like the Old West.
Yeah.
Something like Jesse James meeting Frankenstein's daughter.
Yeah. This is like a classic pulpy one. This is one that, like, usually when you see lists of, like, you know, the top like 10 or 20 Frankenstein movies, this one will often pop up in lists. And yeah, it's one that I've been like putting off because it's just, you know, I like to kind of divide up the big name ones, and yeah, so I'm excited to get to this one with the show. It's been a while since I've watched it.
Absolutely. I love two-fisted tales of adventure, things like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. The Weird West. That's always good too. All right. Well, where can they find us, Anthony?
So you can find us on all the socials at The Frankencast. You can also find us on YouTube. You can email us at thefrankencast@gmail.com. And you can always find us over at patreon.com/thefrankencast. We've been finishing up our first season of The Munsters. We've been watching some different Reanimator content over there. So yeah, we've been having a good time with a couple different fun series lately.
Yep, absolutely. Some off-the-wall kind of stuff. And we love it. All right. Well, if there's nothing else to say, to be continued.
Looks like you survived another episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman and Eric Velasquez. Follow us on Twitter at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.
CONEFINDM